Men of Reddit. What's the most pathetic / ridiculous thing another man has done in an attempt to assert his dominance over you? I was standing in a breezeway outside a friend's apartment while in college, and a guy coming down the stairs from an upper floor kinda tripped near the bottom of the stairs and stumbled into me. It was clear he was super drunk and immediately got aggressive. He was so worked up about being tougher than me for some reason that he started doing push-ups at me while me and my friends just laughed. Fortunately, his friends came and apologized and took him back upstairs, but it was definitely the most bizarre assertion of dominance I've ever encountered. Story 2. I used to tend bar in Milwaukee, and there's nothing that triggers bros more than seeing someone drinking something they don't like. I can't tell you how many arguments began with some guy, always unsolicited / unprovoked mind you, feeling compelled to judge and educate other guys about what they're drinking or not drinking. You drink that? And it all goes downhill from there. No one cares. Drink what you like and shut up. Story 3. Literally last weekend, some really drunk dude who I had never once met or interacted with tried to fight me to impress the girl he was with? It was completely ridiculous, and his way of trying to initiate it was just repeatedly body checking me on the dance floor, which I ignored because I thought he was just being drunk and dumb. Turns out one of his friends had to stop him from blindsiding me with a sucker punch to the face, assuming he was able to aim that well. Some people do not mix well with alcohol, apparently. Story 4. I work in a grocery store and sometimes help unload the delivery trucks, and our delivery comes in on what we call cages. Like a 6-foot cage on wheels, and obviously one that's full of toilet paper will be really light, and one that's filled with 2-liter bottles of juice are the heavy ones. The lift that lowers them from the truck has that patterned metal floor, and you have to pull the heavy cages hard to get them off. Now, I'm 5'8", and I don't have a lot of weight on me, but I can pull these cages off just fine. But there's a guy who's like 6'2", and is always trying to show how strong he is. So whenever I'm helping and he's there, he always insists he gets the heavy cages and that I get the little guy cages. Everyone agrees he needs to grow up. Story 5. A former coworker. He would just stand in the way and refuse to move. Even if he wasn't in the way, he would purposely get in the way. I work in a narrow kitchen, so you can imagine how annoying that could be. At one particular moment, I was carrying a bulky 20-pound box, and he decided to do that. I pretended to not see him and barreled into him. He fell over and got incredibly mad at me. Started talking about how I have no muscle. It was pretty funny. It was a display of the most fragile masculinity I've ever seen. Story 6. Playing a game of pool at a bar for a beer. Dude missed an easy shot and broke the cue stick on his knee. He then gets in my face to try to intimidate me. I just simply tell him, "Look, dude, you're at a locals bar." He shut up and left after that. Dummy. Edit. Yep, most of you are correct. Locals bar meant we all knew each other and had everyone's back. Only time I've had to use that line. Honestly, was looking out for this dude more than anything. Did not want to see him get his ass kicked and any of us to go to jail that night. Story 7. A friend tried to make himself look good in front of his crush by literally putting me in a random chokehold for a laugh. Turns out it was because I was talking to her. I had a girlfriend at the time. We were just talking. It wasn't a chokehold though. It was basically just a headlock. So I decided to correct him. I was fairly oblivious and didn't realize this was a failed alpha move. Creeped the crap out of his crush that he would do that out of nowhere, and she stopped talking to him. Apparently, she quite liked him up until that point, so he kinda shot himself in the foot. Story 8. So when I was in the 8th grade, there was this one kid who hated me for no reason. I was really big for my age, so there was no way this 5'1" guy was going to fight me. So he did something so cringy, I have no idea what he was going for. I was sitting at lunch with my friends, and this kid walks up to us and spits in my glass of milk and says in a very commanding tone, "Drink!" I just stood up and the kid bolted. Got a good laugh out of it with my friend though. Edit. To all asking what it tasted like, I did not drink the milk. Edit 2. The kid bolted because he was a huge pussy, never wanting to get into trouble. I'm not flexing by saying that. Story 9. This happened over D&D when my friend, who owns a store, let these guys we didn't know that well to join our campaign. I don't know why I, out of the table, got singled out, but a girl walks in and this guy complained that I didn't order pizza for him, said, "How about you go F yourself," when I asked him if he wanted some, walked over behind me and playfully put his arms around my neck. I told him I'd punch him in the face if he did it one more time because I don't know who the F he is. Absolutely ruined my day. Story 10. Not me, but my dad. My dad has season tickets for the AHL hockey team in town. One day, he was late for a game and arrived to see a teen in his seat with his girlfriend. My dad kindly asked him to move, explaining that these were his seats. The teen responded with a quick, "No, it's not." My dad then showed him his season tickets and pointed out on the kids' tickets that their actual seats were a few rows up. The kid got up and tried to square up to my dad. My father was just like, "Really, dude?" and ignored him. The girlfriend began screaming at him for being an a-hole. Long story short, Dad kindly asked Kid to get out of his seat, and Kid tried to intimidate my dad for this. Edit. To clear up any confusion, the girlfriend was calling my dad the a-hole. Teenagers, am I right? Story 11. My neighbor in front of I'm a guy, house had a boyfriend that would literally rip his shirt off and come outside every single time I was in my front yard. It could be 7 a.m. or midnight, but it wouldn't matter to him. I could be walking to my car and here comes Mr. Globo Gym flexing all around his yard. He would immediately go back inside when I went back inside. This went on for almost half a year, until one day I saw him hop into his mega-lifted truck and drive away, never to be seen again. He did have pretty sweet pecs though. Story 12. One night in college, me and my buddies were walking down the street at about 11:30 p.m. We were near a major university and on a street that was almost entirely college kids renting. It was a Friday night, warm, so lots of people were out drinking on patios, talking, playing drinking games, etc. Generally pretty chill. We're done pre-gaming at home and headed to a bar or something. I don't remember. Anyway, we're walking down the road and across the street, there's some people on a patio. They yell something at us. We weren't really listening, but the tone seemed friendly. Or at least, "Woo, yeah, college bro, am I right?" Generally. I kinda yell back, "Yeah man, cool beans," and return to my conversation. Apparently this guy does not like beans, regardless of temperature, because the next thing I hear is, "Did you just effing say cool beans?" and see this perfect Skylar pop collar college bro storming off his porch to come across the street at us, looking like I just pissed in his natural piss light. I can only respond with a confused, "Yeah?" My group stops. This dude is crossing the street at us, looking like he wants to fight. Him, "Say it again, bro. What'd you say?" Some girl behind him, "Just let it go, Blake. /Skylar/Chad. They didn't mean it." Me, "What? Really?" My friend, "What the F?" Me, "I said cool beans." Him, "Get the F out of here, dude, before I kick your ass." Me, "Okay then, later bro." And we walked off as he stayed angrily flexing in the middle of the street while this girl is tugging his arm, trying to get him back to the house. We made it to the end of the block, about 3 more houses probably, before my entire group just broke down laughing at the absurdity of it. I really don't understand it. Was it supposed to be a prank? Was he just a drunk dick looking to fight? Did he think I was intimidated? I'm not sure. Either way, cool beans and "Did you just effing say cool beans?" are a standard farewell among that group of friends. I am noticing a theme here between alcohol and boys/men being around girls that is causing this false bravado. I'm going to go out on a very sturdy limb here and say that this is probably not the last story like this that we're going to hear. So let's move on. Story 13. Make fun of the way I take my coffee. I hate the toxic crap where, "Unless you drink it black, you're not a real man." Like a female dog, I'll drink it however I damn well like. Quick edit. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything to drink black coffee. If you prefer it that way, good on you. I'm talking about the person that will call you a puss for adding cream and sugar, or God forbid some salted caramel flavored shot. I'll admit I myself am guilty of doing this, but I do it in jest. I enjoy black coffee, I enjoy medium/medium rare steaks, and I give people that order steaks a hard time for ordering it well done, because real men don't do that. But it's all in jest, and if you take that personally, come on, lighten up. That's literally what dudes do. Story 14. Dancing at the club, minding my own business, dude starts talking to me. I guess I was dancing too close to his chick or his sister or whatever. I don't know. I didn't even really notice her until he said something. He goes, I'm paraphrasing, I was pretty drunk, "Your arms are so thin," grabs my arm, "compared to mine," like implying my muscles aren't worthy to dance with he, which I wasn't even doing, so I just kind of laughed right in his face and kept dancing right there. He didn't say anything after that. It was weird, and in hindsight, I probably should have gotten a bit more mad, but I just couldn't take him seriously at all. Story 15. I was a co-ed recreational adult indoor soccer league, 20 to 28-year-olds pretty much, and there was this one dude who thought he was some guy who should be in the pros. He was average at best, but the issue was he kept tripping people, pushing them around. There's basically a no contact rule since there are women and it's a rec league, and we all kinda had enough of him. Anyway, I have the ball and dribble for a bit with it. The whole time he's on my heels trying to trip me and kick my legs, etc. Being an ex-college player, I know how it works and I just avoid it. But he was doing it to everyone, including the women. Eventually, I just stopped at the ball, turned around, and gave him a slight push. Like, no more than you would use to push a shopping cart into a cart corral. He immediately gets up and puffs his chest out and gets in my face. He's like 6'2", I'm like 5'10". Then he literally screams, "I will destroy you!" I just laugh it off and walk away, cause I know I just got us both kicked out of the game. What a tool. Story 16. I was at this crappy tavern in my hometown quite a few years ago. It was known for being kind of violent from time to time, and the nearby high school was full of kids that seemed to love a good fight. According to my then-girlfriend. I was oblivious to this fact at the time and was just out for a good time. Dancing, drinking, smoking a joint or two. I noticed this guy on the dance floor that looked like he could have been Dave Grohl's twin. So, as I was dancing around, I yelled that exact thing at him. "Dude, you look like effing Dave Grohl! That's awesome!" And his immediate response was to deadpan and scream out, "I effing hate Dave Grohl!" and stop dancing immediately, with sincere rage in his eyes. I couldn't help but laugh at his response, which definitely didn't make the situation better. I had seen someone getting choked out by the bouncer maybe 20 minutes prior. Yes, choked out. So who knew what this random high school kid was willing or wanting to do, but thankfully a few friends were nearby and seeing my obvious confidence, he just glared and walked away. Who hates Dave Grohl? The man's a gem. Story 17. Got to the bus station. A bunch of kids are hanging around outside as usual. Don't know why. It's cool, I guess. And they're blocking the entrance. One guy has his hand in his friend's pocket, hoodie pocket, but they're far enough apart that I can walk between them. This kid sees me, stares me down, and keeps his hand in the other kid's pocket. I just walk through, slowly pushing his arm out of the way, and he calls me rude. This is a strange visual. I'm having a hard time putting the pieces together of your hand being in the hoodie pocket of someone else and somehow blocking the walkway? What's going on here? Story 18. I was in NOLA back in college and was wearing goofy American flag-themed sunglasses at the time, because reasons. Some other guy who was at least 10 years older thought they were cool and tried to fight me for them. I remember having them in my hand and his hand over my head as he tried to squeeze my hand in an attempt to get me to let go of the sunglasses. This didn't work. We were standing in a group that was a mix of my friends and his friends as he continued squeezing the crap out of my hand. I loudly addressed the group and asked him, "Are you really trying to fight some college kid who's 10 years younger for a pair of cheap sunglasses? You're pathetic." He looked like he was about to hit me, but luckily his friends all joined in and started making fun of him. I guess he came to his senses at that point and stopped squeezing and backed off. Him and his friends left us alone after that. Good riddance. Story 19. I'm a 6'4", 250-pound, semi-muscular bearded dude. Something about me makes older dudes feel like they have to one-up me in some way. I work in a gym, so I meet a lot of insecure dudes. No judgment, I'm insecure too, just don't be an idiot. So where do I start? Over tight handshakes. I get it, you're trying to crush my hand. It's not working. You don't want to play this game. General rudeness. Guys will act like dicks in the gym, and to me, this isn't McDonald's. I'm not doormat customer service. I can and will kick you out. People jokingly calling me fat. I'm 20% body fat. Could be lower, but I'm not a ham planet. I couldn't care less, but it's funny how it's always the dials. People a foot shorter than me, or guys that couldn't see their own dick with a stiffy in a mirror. Competitive ego lifting. I'm minding my own business working out. Some guy on the other side of the gym will come over, copy my exercise, but with dog crap form and try to match my weight. I wouldn't care if I didn't have to tell them not to, so they don't snap their crap up. Story 20. Talked a girl I cared about into not speaking to me again. She never told me that they were dating and she was flirting with me, sending me selfies and video clips, etc. I only found out almost a year later that she was being unfaithful with him. My granddad was recently diagnosed with cancer at the time, and I saw him on Facebook mocking me while my granddad was dying. The girl heart-reacted the post. The funny thing is that he called me a cuck. His girlfriend was being unfaithful with him, but he called me a cuck. When I tried to confront him about his bullcrap and about her unfaithfulness, he blocked me. I can't think of anything more pathetic than a guy only mocking someone when they're not around and then running away when you try to confront them. Story 21. Worked as a lifeguard at a summer camp years ago. During safety training, we had to do a missing person search, which required all available staff to join hands and walk from the beach and into the water as far as we could, while feeling with our feet for the missing swimmer. During training, there was a sandbag we had to find. The guy next to me kept insisting on holding mine in a certain way because I will take the upper hand in this situation, said at me while staring me down. Whatever, dude. We're theoretically looking for a drowned child right now. Story 22. I don't know if it was necessarily dominance, assertion, or misplaced chivalry, but my SO and I have a deal where I cover all the other bills in the house as long as she covers food and does more chores. We both came to that agreement. It just works easiest. That includes covering eating out to a reasonable amount, and then I'll chip in. So we're just getting some BK, and I think the guy at the register saw that my SO was about to pay. So he said, no, he pays. Probably assuming I was some deadbeat or something. Instead of putting up a fuss, I just covered the $10 or whatever it cost. Story 23. Back in my youth, we had a sleepover at a friend's house. It was me and my girlfriend of the time and two other couples. We were probably 13. One of the other dudes tried to assert dominance over me because he thought I wasn't, quote, manly enough to have a girlfriend. He was sneakily bullying me in front of the others by always saying mean stuff that targeted me, but nobody did much because nobody gave a crap about him, even his girlfriend. He waited until the girls went to the bathroom and came to me with the other dude and punched me in the face. My nose was bleeding a little bit and he punched me in the stomach. The other dude was trying to get me in a headlock when the girls came back into the room. They left me on the couch and went to the girls all proud of themselves. Girls slapped the two a-holes and asked them to leave. The boys were shocked, and when the three girls went to tell the dad, who owned the house, what the two boys did, they had to call their parents and explain what they did. I never met those two guys after that. Story 24. My best female friend's boyfriend, who is 100% jealous/threatened by how close I am to her, will constantly try to one-up me in conversation whenever I talk to her. He keeps an eye on me the whole time that I'm with her, and as soon as I make a joke or tell a story, he jumps right in with his own thing to try and top what I said, like every single time that I speak. Oh, that, and he'll roll up his sleeves and sit with his elbows on the table in a not-so-subtle effort to compare his biceps to mine. Story 25. Probably going to get buried, but had a stepfather who insisted that the cardinal directions were, I always remember the order of them by saying to myself, never eat soggy waffles, north, west, south, east. He had been a Boy Scout and in the Army. He had incorrectly remembered where a spatial body was going to be. ISS was passing by overhead, and I remembered it correctly. So to prove me wrong and himself right, he tried to swap west and east. I tried to call him out on his crap, but he wouldn't listen. Oh, and he left my mother when she got diagnosed with breast cancer. F you, John, you sack of crap. Story 26. I'm not a fan of the shoulder touch. If it's a close friend giving advice, it's reassuring. But if it's someone trying to assert some dominance and does the shoulder touch in an attempt to be friendly, no, dude. Every person who's done that is trying to sell me on something, and I hate being hustled. One person I worked alongside with, more like he was a brother to the owner, would try to do that with my friends and I. He was a burly dude, weightlifter, but was always trying to get us involved in the company and convincing us that doing things for free would help build the company, which will further lead to future revenue. No, dude. I'd smile and nod to be polite, but we parted ways shortly after because I know my worth and $0 is not how I like my checks signed. Thank you very much. Story 27. I was hanging out with a girl that I had recently become friends with at my place. I already have a girlfriend and made sure she knew that we're strictly platonic. We're standing on my apartment balcony when my neighbor walks by, and when we greet him, he says, "What's up, boy?" sarcastically, and starts trying to stare me down. I invite him up, and instead of taking the stairs like a normal effing person, he decides to jump and climb up my balcony. He eventually pesters her enough for her Snapchat, and they end up becoming a thing for less than 2 weeks before their relationship implodes because she both sells adult content behind his back and tried to make a move on me. No, I don't associate with either of them anymore. Okay, I've got a spoiler for this poster here. If a girl wants to hang out with you and she knows that you have a girlfriend and she still wants to hang out one-on-one, totally cool. She doesn't want to be your platonic friend. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. She's trying to get in your drawers. So make a note of that and stay out of trouble. Story 28. I was sort of seeing/FWB with a girl a few years back. We agreed to be exclusive, but nothing serious. She was hosting an event at a bar, roughly 50 to 60 people in attendance. I knew maybe 20 of them, so I was making my rounds. I see her at the bar being chatted up by another dude. No worries, I trust her. I'm not a crazy protective guy either. About 15 minutes later, I go over and ask her something about the event since she was using some of my audio equipment for it. I didn't mention or even imply that we had a thing in front of the dude. Guy says, "Buddy, what are you doing? We're busy chatting here." I start to reply, "Hey man, no worries here. I just need," and he cuts me off. "Listen man, I really don't care. If I give you a $20 bill right now, would you get lost? I crack a smile. Sure, man. The dummy gives me a crisp 20, and I leave them alone. Spend the next half hour or so chatting with friends. Girl joins me later after leaving the guy at the bar. He was interesting, eh? I asked her. Yeah, I told him I wasn't interested, but he told me he just wanted to meet someone new and buy me a couple of drinks. Turns out, to the surprise of nobody, that he was trying to take her home. Anyways, hang out for the rest of the night with our friends. Girl's a little tipsy from her free drinks and asked me to come back with her. Just to be petty, I used that crisp $20 bill to pay for the cab back to her place. Fare was something like $12. Told him to keep the rest. Thanks, stranger. Story 29. When I was on a trip to Iceland, my friends and I were out drinking at the bars, and I met a local guy outside, and as we were talking, he kept trying to get close enough to me so he could put his foot on my foot. The first time he did it, I just thought it was accidental. Then I could see it was what he was trying to do. I ended up telling the dude to F off, and the situation de-escalated from there. Other local guys told me after that it's a thing they do there in Iceland to show dominance / start fights with tourists. Story 30. In college, we were having a conversation about which animals we thought closely matched our personalities. One guy was a psych major, one of those that weaponize psychology by trying to psychoanalyze strangers and all that stuff. So he said he was probably a lion, and then would say everyone else were like hippos or manatees or other ugly-looking fat animals. Seemed a bit transparent to me, but I think he really thought he was getting away with some subversive psych trick. Story 31. Not me, but my wife. We were living in an apartment complex, and my wife had just parked her car, was carrying groceries and my 2-year-old inside. And this guy stopped her and said, "That's my spot. You need to move your car now." We don't have assigned spaces, but my wife was caught like a deer in headlights and put all the groceries and my daughter back in the car and moved it, just so he could park his 10-year-old Cadillac CTS in his favorite spot. I always got home from work before this guy, however. I never directly confronted him, but from then on, that parking spot became my spot, and I parked there every single day for the next 2 years. I saw him out and about a few times, but thankfully being 6'1", overweight, and bearded, most people choose not to mess with me, even though I've never been in a fight and would be helpless in a confrontational situation. Look, as I always say, you just have to look like you can kick someone's butt. You don't have to actually be able to do it. Who cares how strong you actually are if you know martial arts? If you just have that look, if you're a big dude or have somewhat toned muscles, or even a beard apparently, most people won't mess with you. So good for you, buddy. Story 32. A guy tried to fight me in middle school because I was moving away and he wanted to take my social position. Those were his words, not mine. He made sure everyone, including the obligatory middle school crush, was watching and he initiated a fight. At the time, he'd never fought anyone before, and I had a black belt and 5 years of Taekwondo experience. Needless to say, losing that fight was social self-unalive for him, and I moved 9 hours away the literal next day. So to directly oppose what I just said about story number 31, if you don't look like you can kick someone's butt, make sure that you can. If you're a small guy, skinny, or, just look unassuming, but then you bust out the black belt, 5 years of Taekwondo experience, that to me is pretty funny. So once again, good for you, buddy. Story 33. Mocking me, making up fake bullcrap about me and spreading rumors about me around the building that I was related to our supervisor and the super was dating my sister, and trying to get me in trouble for stuff I never even did. He was ranting to my supervisor one day about how I made less money, and he was there longer than me, so why is he getting yelled at? All because he felt threatened by me that I was a harder working and way more reliable employee. He's the one who would make up the most bullcrap excuses to blow off work. He ended up getting fired, and I'm still smiling about it in my new job, while I'm pretty sure he's now a convenience store cashier. I wish I could have seen the look on his face when they finally did it. Edit. To anyone who actually has the cashier job, my comment was not trying to make fun of you. I'm just laughing at my former coworker situation because he tried getting me fired multiple times and he failed, while I eventually moved to a better company. Story 34. I worked at Pizza Hut when I was 14. Everything except the cash register. A new manager started with us. Before the end of my shift, where it was just him and me, a Sunday, I made myself a pizza and was about to go home. Now, the previous management didn't mind when I made a pizza for myself about once a week or so, but this guy got extremely mad over it. "Hey, you." "Yeah? What's this?" Pizza? "Who ordered this?" "No one. It's for me." "Did I say you could make a pizza for yourself?" "Well, no, but..." "So why'd you make it?" "The other managers for the last 6 months..." "I don't care! You better ask me next time." "All right. You can keep the pizza this time." "Sure. Say thank you to me." Thanks." Guy was like 40. Good thing I quit like a week later, for unrelated reasons. Story 35. In college, I got into an elevator and was followed in by a younger guy I didn't know. He eyed my, pretty standard in every way, backpack and said, "My backpack is way bigger than yours." Fair enough. He had a military jumbo pack. Could have easily gone on a hike/camp with it. I smiled and agreed, but he kept talking about how much bigger his was and how he couldn't fit anything into one like mine. Weird flex, as the kids say. Story 36. Not just over me, but over a whole group of us. At my 10-year high school reunion, they handed out prizes for various things, like most kids, married a classmate, etc. One prize was for whoever traveled the furthest to get to the reunion, North Central Indiana. Different people stood up and said Chicago, New Jersey, and Georgia. Then one pseudo-popular a-hole stood up and said, "Key West!" As he started to go up to the stage, a guy best known for being a slacker stood up and mumbled, "Saudi Arabia." He joined the Air Force right out of high school and somehow turned that into a contractor job with the Saudi Air Force. Story 37. A guy told the girl I was trying to date that I had SA'd another girl and was wanted by the police. She was shaken by the allegation, but told me his story anyway. By a very strange coincidence, I was applying for a job that required a security clearance. So, at the moment she told me I was wanted by the police, I was carrying a letter from the police that said I had no criminal record and no warrants for my arrest. I showed her the letter and the other guy looked like the gigantic ass that he was. Later, I informed my alleged SA victim that he had said this about her. I also related the story to the guy's fraternity president. I don't know if he had to face any repercussions from his fraternity, but the president guy advised me to beat him up. I declined. I'm sorry, but it would be really hard for me to take the high road when someone's literally slandering you and trying to get you arrested. Saying that someone SA'd another person without any kind of backing proof is a very, very serious accusation, and for this guy to not even want to beat him up, I commend your self-control, sir. Story 38. We were joking around with a female then friend of mine. The next day, she must have told it to her boyfriend, who completely mistook it and sent me a threatening message on Facebook. I just laughed at him because even though I hardly knew anything about self-defense, that dude was like 55 kilograms, and from earlier conversations, I knew he was as hopeless as he could possibly be. I guess he expected me to get scared for some reason, so when I just laughed at him, he didn't message me again, nor talk to me in person ever again. Story 39. Reverse it, and what I did to him. Started dating this girl. Her ex-BF was not happy about it. She went from him right to me. I see this guy on a weekly basis at the gym, and he's always staring me down. Eventually, one time he comes up and starts talking crap while I'm jogging. Makes me furious as I have to remove headphones and slow up to hear him. And he's making a scene in the middle of the gym. Now, I'm quite the cannabis enthusiast. I'm low-key and keep to myself, so I didn't really react in that moment. But the next time he's staring me down, in the locker room, as I'm half naked, walking back from the shower to change. We lock eyes and his chin drops to signify his pompous alpha maleness. So I give him a wink and blow him a kiss, and he was completely disarmed. His cronies are confused. He lost his manpower and walked on like a dog with his tail between his legs. He just didn't know how to react. The gym was a pleasant experience after that. Story 40. I was out with my ex-GF one day when we ran into one of her male friends, who was into her as far as I know, and tried to boast his reputation every time they talked. He acted like I didn't exist and talked to her for about 10 minutes about how much he loves skateboarding. My GF loves skateboarding. I'd probably break my legs and arms. And B, when finally realizing that I exist, just insulted the shirt I wore that day. Who did choose that for you? Your mom? That's ridiculous as F. I have way more style. While laughing like a madman. Before leaving, I wore a white shirt, black pants, and white shoes, while he wore a green and yellow tank top, red shorts, and blue shoes. And not the kind anybody could pull off. But I guess looking like a parrot ain't ridiculous. The funniest part was that my GF actually chose my shirt because I couldn't decide on what to wear and asked her. Story 41. My father didn't like that I hit him back the first time I retaliated, so he called the police on me. Told them I was 18, I was a minor, and that was a problem. Told them I'd come at him and attacked him. Imagine that. A grown-ass man had to lie to someone with more authority than him just to finally get a win over his dependent child. I'm glad I don't live with him anymore. He would break down my door after I barricaded it with bookshelves and such to hit me sometimes, and for what? A bit of bad language? Texting people from my room rather than in front of him? I can't think of a better definition of pathetic. Story 42. This happened about 15 years ago. My GF and I were at a club for her birthday. I was not into clubs or dancing, but she was. Anyway, I made an effort to try and dance, but Stephen Hawking had more rhythm than me. A guy came up to me and told me I was a terrible dancer. I just laughed and told him I agreed. A few moments later, he came back and said, "I don't think you understand just how bad you are. It's embarrassing." I replied that I know exactly how bad I was and that I was only doing it because my girlfriend wanted to. He looked at my girlfriend, then at me and said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you outside and beat you until you're black and blue. Then I'm going to come back inside, grab your girl, and take her home with me. Then I'm going to screw her until she can't stand." My girlfriend heard that last part and was none too thrilled at his suggestion. She told him to get lost, and if he bothered either of us again, she'd rip his balls off and feed them to him. Story 43. I was seeing this girl and she wanted to meet up with an old friend at a coffee shop. I walk in and this guy is sitting there reading an advanced physics textbook. We all sit down and chat, and when my girlfriend went to the bathroom, he asked me about myself. I said I was into music. I play in bands and have some regional success. So he asked me what genres/bands I was into. Most of my stuff is ska/punk, so I asked if he heard of Streetlight Manifesto, an insanely talented band who are popular enough that an average person might know them, and his exact quote was, "I used to listen to those guys in high school. I've matured now, though. Have you ever heard of Mumford & Sons?" After my girlfriend and I left, she immediately turns to me and goes, "Wasn't he awesome?" Needless to say, we didn't last much longer as a couple. Haha. Story 44. I got pants once in 8th grade out of the blue. People laugh because I was getting pants, but I didn't make a beef about it. He really just made himself look like a prick. He must have been insecure about something. I was a nice kid, and maybe he was intimidated by my good grades or appearance. IDK. That memory feels like gum stuck to the bottom of my shoe. Maybe I am an ass, but I take solace in the fact that Kyle K amounted to absolutely nothing. I saw him looking rough, working in fast food, late 20s. I got pants by Kyle, but Kyle got pants by life. I hope things are looking up for him. Story 45. When I was 16, a dude bro in his Hummer H3 honked at my two friends and I while we were golfing. Naturally, we all gave him the finger as he drove by. The gentleman stopped his car and got out, clearly looking to start a fight. Screamed at us with the "Why did you flip me off? Do you want to fight?" shtick, even though he clearly honked at us. As he was coming towards us, angrily shouting, I retorted with, "You're yelling at children." Realizing we were all underage and he was not, and the fact we were all wielding golf clubs, he got back in his douchemobile and drove off. I still wonder what went through his head to try to pull off a stunt like that. Story 46. One of my friends was at a bar we're regulars at, so I went up to her to say hi, not realizing she was on a date. She introduces me. "Hey, this is my friend, Boof_dog. I shook his hand and said, "Hey man, nice to meet you." He legitimately responds, "I'm an alpha male." Neither my friend or I knew how to follow that. It sounds ridiculous, but it 100% happened, and I hope will forever be the most ridiculous thing someone says to me. Story 47. I got mansplained by a coworker. I homebrew and mentioned I made a gallon of mead that turned out really well. So coworker guy goes home and researches how to make mead and holds me after work one day explaining the process. The whole convo was like, first you boil the citrus zest with the honey. I know. Then you add tannins, so it's got some zing. I know. Then you cool the mixture and add yeast. I know. What are you trying to prove by wasting both our time explaining something you have no experience with and we both know I have done successfully? On the plus side, it really opened my eyes to when mansplaining actually happens to women and led me to calling it out, even on myself. Story 48. Some of this is going to sound like subreddit That Happened material because it's so weird and petty, but I promise I'm not creative enough to make this up. My first job was in an office where there was a chief, 5 managers, and about 12 contractors. One of the managers was clearly unhappy that the chief was a woman and that he had to share any power with the other managers. That's not that weird, but it sets the stage. The really weird stuff was in how he acted around the other men in the office. I personally noticed that if he came into the men's restroom after me, he would wait until I was done with the urinal and then use the same one as me, even though there were 2 urinals and 3 stalls to choose from. At first I thought he just had a favorite spot, but then it happened at the other urinal. Finally, one of the other contractors asked me, "Does Andy ever ask you which urinal you use?" Me, "No." male? Coworker. I was leaving the bathroom when Andy came in, and he asked me which urinal I used. I just pointed to it because I didn't understand the question, and he went and used that one. It was weird. Around that time, a second male coworker overheard and said, "You know what? I went on a business trip with Andy, and when he found out my room was several floors higher than his, he wouldn't let me out of the elevator until I had switched rooms with him. He said he couldn't have a subordinate in a better room than his." That's when we all realized he was literally marking his territory over ours by using the same urinal after we did. Name change for privacy. It sounds like this guy was a male dog in a past life. You know how dogs like to pee on things that other dogs have peed on to assert dominance? Yeah, I thought that was just a dog thing, but I guess human dudes do that as well. Story 49. So I'm 6'3", 220 pounds. Pretty big guy, and I worked out regularly when this happened. I went to a house party to pick up my girlfriend, who said she was too drunk and wanted to leave. I find her, and she runs off to the bathroom. This guy walks up to me, maybe 5'4", buck 10 wet, and gets really close and looks me square in the eye and goes, "If you take her, we'll have to jump you." And I look around, and he's got maybe 5 or 6 friends about his size. I had one of those, would you fight one horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses moments, and almost burst out laughing in his face. Found out later, he had a huge crush on my girlfriend, and all his friends hated me for being in his way. I drove her home, didn't get jumped. Story 50. Oh man, this one was actually recent. I was in a band up until about a week ago. Everything was going awesome and I was having a lot of fun until some bad timing caused a lot of things to go to crap. One, I was sent out of state for work travel, and the band had to back out of a show last minute because of it. I felt bad, but I couldn't really do anything about it. 2, singer/guitarist in the band had some sort of blow up with his ex-girlfriend/roommate/band manager. Just to be clear, these are all the same person. Guy goes into a pretty awful mental state over all this, requires constant adult supervision by the remaining members of the band, including his best friend/our backup vocalist. More on her later. Anyway, this guy has somewhat of a troubled history, both in his personal life and mental health, and with other musicians in the local scene. He seems generally well-liked, but the band up until this point was a revolving door of musicians, which was a red flag to me from the start, but I was enjoying myself, so I ignored it. Long story short, he's gone off the deep end. I'm in Florida and am powerless to do anything about it, except check on him on social media, and the rest of the band is literally taking shifts at his house to make sure, quote, he doesn't do anything stupid. A few weeks pass and I go back home from my work travel and get hit with a depressive episode myself. We live in a semi-rural area with not much to do, and whenever I travel and come back, I usually have to deal with some pretty intense feelings of resentment, bitterness, loneliness, and general sad boy stuff that I've had rattling around in my brain my whole life. I tell everyone what's up, that I'm not going to be very much fun to be around, and request some space. Still show up to practice, still learn my bass lines, still play out shows. I'm just not going to be a ray of sunshine. Here's where it all gets effy. Our illustrious singer/guitarist, we'll call him SG from here on, has decided that he's going to be the one to fix everything. Dude starts being obnoxiously chipper with me during practice times. In general, doing some over-the-top effing around. Texting me at all hours of the day, being annoying, and trying to horn in on my activities outside of the band. I politely told him I just wanted space. See you at practice. At first I appreciated it, but Guy just wouldn't let it go. It quickly became obvious that cheering me up was just some sort of project to him, and it had to be him that made me better. All this really accomplished was making me sick of him. Of course, his own stuff hasn't been resolved yet either. So in the middle of all this, the guy starts periodically going off the deep end again. No showing practice, quitting the band. At one point, I'm pretty sure a fill-in drummer we used for a show wasn't paid in a timely fashion. He starts getting very passive-aggressive in the band group chat. At one point, he quit the band again 2 days before a show. The rest of us had to go to the promoter and tell him what was going on because we were pulling out so late. SG moves out of his house, so we no longer have a practice space. SG threatens to sue us if we play our scheduled shows without him under the same name because it's his band. Ultimately, our fill-in drummer ghosts us because of the instability. We have no practice space, and now we have another show coming up in about a week. Now back to his best friend/backup singer, who we'll refer to from here on as BFF. This girl has had his back through effing everything. To his credit, SG was there for her during a very difficult time and supported her on her way out of an abusive relationship. Because of this, they're very close, and she's his ride-or-die BFF. Whenever this guy would lose his crap, she was always the one spending nights at his house, making sure he had someone to talk to. She made sure that his weapons were locked up. She made sure that he wasn't alone when he was having a hard time. Anytime that SG ever abdicated his responsibilities as bandleader, she would step in and handle everything. Remember, SG chased off our manager, lost our practice space, and stopped handling non-musical band business. BFF rose up and put all of that on her plate on top of babysitting him. She's a wonderful girl, and I admire her maturity and determination through all of this. Unfortunately, dude cannot handle her stepping up to the plate and doing this, and he just starts treating her extremely crappy for no reason. We later find out that he at one point broke her glasses and forcibly removed her from his home. She stands by him, sincerely believing that he's just not in his right mind. So we're a week out from our next show. We need to get in a couple practices, at least, before we go out of state to play. We have no drummer, we have no practice space, SG is petulantly doing absolutely F all. BFF pulls all of the strings, cashes in on all the favors, does a ton of networking to not only find us a practice space on short notice, but also line up a last-minute fill-in drummer that will play in the show with us and drive into practice on the days we've scheduled leading up to the show. She's done it. She's the hero. Our asses are saved. Drummer is driving 90 minutes to come practice with us. Practice gets here, and SG no-shows. It's me, the bassist, a drummer that doesn't know all the songs, and BFF quietly imploding because the guy won't get out of bed to come to practice with the drummer we hired that came from 2 counties over. Drummer is pissed because we're objectively wasting his time. BFF and I are embarrassed and humiliated because our band looks like a complete effing joke at the moment. Later that night, BFF and I see SG out at the bar partying, apparently feeling much better. He spends the rest of the night acting as if nothing had ever happened, posting memes on Facebook, poking fun at BFF and the other guitarist, who wasn't available for practice because he couldn't get off work that day. At this point, I'm livid, and I have nothing but horrible, vile judgment to direct towards this man, so I find it better to say nothing. Things were already pretty tense between he and I, but I was now actively avoiding him because I legitimately could not come up with a productive way to address his failings. I closed my tab and went home, and kept an eye on the group chat to see what our next move was. BFF jumps on and announces proposed practice times and itinerary for Saturday's show. It's an hour and a half away in the next state over. Drummer, the saint he is waiting to hear from us to see when to come down. It is now on us to inform BFF of our availability. My NHL team had just announced their playoff schedule. One of the proposed practice nights was the night of Game 1. Game 2 was an afternoon game on the day of which our show was scheduled for the evening. I brought this up and said, Thursday's practice, I'll need to leave 30 minutes early, and for Saturday's show, I will drive to where the show is in the morning so I can watch the game in the afternoon and already be there before load-in. I can haul instruments for one band member if you guys want to join me. Animo, this is perfectly reasonable. SG pipes up, we wouldn't want you to miss your games, would we? We should just cancel the show. I don't want to be binding up everyone's schedule. I no longer have any patience for this. So I start, calmly, thank God for text conversations you can edit before you say some dumb crap, explaining that I was the only person with any sort of limited availability, that I would still be there for practice and only leave a little early, and that my plan for show day resulted in me getting to the venue literally before anyone else, with whatever gear fit into my car that they wanted to send with me. I tell the guy in no uncertain terms that he needed to crap or get off the pot because I was still here doing my job and he's yo-yoing around with his commitment to the band at the very last second again. And now the house of cards collapses. SG goes effing ham in the group chat. I'm an a-hole. I'm not committed to the band, lol. He's given everything he has to this band, lol, only to be disrespected constantly to everyone around him, lol. His whole life is going to crap and no one is helping him, lol. How dare I not accept his efforts to reach out to me? BFF has been turning everyone in the band against him, lol. She's just a band whore. No lol, just sad. It's time that we look at ourselves and see ourselves for what we really are, which is evidently a gifted bassist with a crap attitude and a desperate singer that can't sing for crap. Some more poorly spelled and punctuated ranting. He calls me a coward for not talking to him. Blah, blah, blah. Says he wants to punch my beard off. Blah, blah, blah. After a couple seconds of silence, I ask if he's done, since he's already torpedoed his band and called his best friend a whore. He responds with, yeah, I feel so much better, and unironically posts this gif, presumably to put the cherry on top of his flawless victory. I told him to lose my number and quit right then and there. I spoke to BFF later that day, and she told me that entire group chat incident had happened while they were in the car together driving home from about an hour away. Effing pathetic. Story 51. I used to work construction, and the lead foreman did not like me. Although, to be fair, I wasn't very good at the job, lol. He was working on a site directly across the street from the site I was on. And one day at lunch, he goes, "I want to see your time card before you leave. I saw you come in late and then sit in your truck for 10 minutes. I want to see you dock 15 minutes off your shift before you leave." That was bullcrap and untrue. And my site foreman wouldn't back me up because he was a spineless prick. So I called the owner of the winery where I worked on weekends and asked to come work for him full time. He agreed. So I called the owner of the construction company and quit. The lead foreman walked up to me later that day and said, "I'm taking over this site, so there isn't going to be any more effing around. Let me see your time card." I told him to F off. I already quit. I'd be gone by Friday. He just went, "Oh," and walked away. So I guess you weren't that sure I was stealing time, eh, Kevin? Story 52. So I went to the bar with the girl I'm effing, right? It's midnight, so we're only stopping in for like 2 drinks and a few games of Buck Hunt, virtual shooting. So we're playing this game, and this dude, who's a full 5 inches shorter than me, comes up behind us and starts chastising me for losing to a girl. Now, 2 things. First, I'm going to start by saying I love throwing my weight around, but the ladies I see are more than capable of standing up for themselves, so I don't engage unless I feel it's necessary. Second, this girl is in the army. She's way more capable with a gun than I am. Anyway, so we're straight up ignoring this dude for 5 minutes while he talks at us. We go smoke a butt and leave that guy with his dick in his hand. When we come back in, I go to get drinks while she gets another game started on the machine. Now, I find out about this after, but she overheard the dude talking to his friend. Their plan was to make me look bad so that she would ditch me and go have group sex with them. Like, bruh, it's 12:30 a.m. on a Wednesday and she's had 1 glass of wine with a dude she's obviously effing. But like I said, she didn't tell me this until later because, to be honest, I probably would have started bullying them if I knew that, lol. Anyway, guy comes back and now he's chastising me for not letting her win. He starts waving his hands in front of the screen and trying to F up my shots. Unsuccessfully. 3 bulls and a dangerous trophy. Bitch. So, I'm at my point, cause I definitely don't like people waving their limbs aggressively towards me. But before I say anything, she chimes in with, "Will you losers F off? I'm trying to F this guy." Well, they F'd off back to their table and shot me a few dirty looks, while the girl and I got a little more cozy. I never thought I'd be on the receiving end of this PUA bullcrap. You know, I feel like this poster is just as bad as the guys that were bothering them at the bar. Just the way that he's telling the story, like this girl's, a trophy or some prize to be had. I don't know, just seems kind of cocky and alpha as well. Like, good for you, man. You're effing a girl. Congratulations. Why do you have to bring that up 5 or 6 times in your post? Anyway, let's move on. Story 53. Okay, so I'm not from the South per se, but constantly wear boots. Cowboy boots. Growing up, it was a normal thing. A large majority of people wore them. So I started at, 15 was when I got my first pair. After that, I always wore them. Now, after I graduated, I joined the Air Force. After basic training in tech school, I got stationed in Japan. I brought 1 pair of decent condition boots with me. Being in Japan, not many other people, especially locals, don't wear boots. So I usually make it a point to mention it when I see someone else wearing a pair when I'm wearing mine. Camaraderie and crap. During the week, I'm always in uniform, unless I'm home in my boxers. So I only wear the boots on the weekend. This particular weekend, I go out with some guys, a lot of us about 20, from my shop, I work maintenance, to go drink. Suddenly, while standing outside the bar talking with someone, one of the guys I don't particularly get along with gets my attention saying something about my boots. I don't really remember exactly what was said. I was drinking, but he was just talking crap about my boots out of nowhere, smirking while giving his banter and looking at the other guys as if to be looking for some kind of acceptance or approval. He was wearing boots as well, and to simplify, it was basically saying his were better than mine because of brand or something. Since no one else around wore boots, they really didn't even respond to this and just looked at him funny. I never understood why he felt the need, but we all just understand that it's just his personality. He's always got to be better than those around him, whether it's better at the job or he's got cooler stuff. He could have bonded and asked about them, talked about back home and stuff, but no, he went straight to talking crap. I guess that's maintenance, right? Story 54. Started at a random retail job in a not amazing part of town, but nothing crazy, to me. Get there, there's a young guy there, barely out of high school. I'm 30. He's half my weight, talking a big game about how it's a dangerous hood and if I feel safe enough working there that a lot of people can't handle it. Typical passive-aggressive bullcrap. He then gets very awkward when I start telling him that I grew up not too far away in a worse part of town, Ended up as a manager slash security at a club in the dead middle of that worst part of town, and have had multiple weapons pulled on me and lots of random fistfights over the years. So no, I was feeling decently safe there in comparison. He didn't talk to me much after that. Story 55. Oh boy, I never thought I'd get a chance to share this one. Buckle up, it's a story. A few years ago, I was out shopping and accidentally bumped into a woman with my cart. I immediately apologized for doing so, even though it was honestly just a light tap. She smiled and said it was fine, but almost as if I had watched it teleport in front of my eyes, a man's head sharply rose up over her shoulder with an intense death stare. I mean, this guy had veins popping out of his beet red forehead. Eyes looked like they were going to pop out. Lips were being suctioned into his mouth, the whole bit. I figured this guy must have been with the woman and tried to explain the situation to him and apologize as well, which only made him go all alpha mode more than before, as he dropped their shopping basket, spilling milk and eggs everywhere, before raising his shoulders up and screaming at me. I knew what this was, as it wasn't the first time dealing with dudes like him, so instead of backing down and leaving the aisle, I put my shoulders up and started screaming back at him. Obviously, he was a little confused at first, given that he was nearly twice the size of me, and he probably didn't expect that. But sometimes you just have to put someone in their place, because nobody else will. He then began to raise his arms over his head and walk in a sort of diagonal line toward me, while yelling some more, and I followed to continue with the imitation act. He then ripped his shirt off and threw it to the ground. I knew this meant he was ready to go, so I also pulled mine off and got ready for a fight. He started flailing his hands in a sort of jazz hands fashion, while arching his back and trotting around me. Before he could complete a full circle and get behind me, I also started to trot in the same counterclockwise fashion until we were locked in dance at the same pace. He then stopped in his tracks, threw his head back in the air, and let out a shrill screech before charging at me with open arms. I sidestepped and dodged his attack, then countered by standing up perfectly straight, raising my arms as high as I could to make myself look big, then turning my head away from him at exactly a 90-degree angle, and fully displaying my brilliant throat fan. I then began to bob my head up and down and left to right to shake my dazzling throat fan for all nearby males to see and fear, and all females to awe at its vibrant rainbow colors. He tried to display his as well, but it was too late. The fight was already over. His female stood by my side and looked down on him like the reject he was. She knew his colors were nowhere near as mesmerizing as mine. He would clearly produce inferior offspring if she were to mate with him. He lowered his head and ran out to the parking lot, where he sat in his empty nest, waiting for the next season for a new chance. Okay, so obviously this isn't real, but what animal is he referring to? You know, like in this story. Comment down below, please. Story 56. Not a man, but many years ago, I took a college F-boy, FB, out for supper with my family. FB was quite a bit older than me and recently come off active duty, SF, and was tall, built, blonde, kind of a stereotypical vintage good look thing going on. Not actually my type, but definitely some people's types, as revealed. My parents, grandma, and aunt were at supper with us, with my aunt's then fiancé. Aunt's fiancé is not an imposing man, shows his age, was a desk jockey, and mostly talked about money to assert dominance. My aunt was a shameless flirt. My aunt and my grandma were greatly enjoying the FBI candy and making the occasional complimentary statement. I thought it was hilarious. FB was amused / always up to be a dick, haha, and my aunt's fiancé was incredibly threatened. Aunt's fiancé then tried to talk about money. FB just laughed and said he had stored away combat pay and was focusing on school. Tried to talk about career. FB spoke about his tours. Tried to change the subject to something not about FB. But then my aunt started cozying up to FB and asking him questions. There may have been a hand on his arm at some point. Said he'd pay for everything. FB toasts him. Finally, Aunt's fiancé orders a platter of raw oysters. He tries to share them, but no one is interested. He tries to shame FB, saying real men eat oysters. I guess my dad doesn't count? FB casually leans back and cracks a joke about oysters being the filter feeders of the sea and how he's not interested in eating ocean trash snot. Aunt's fiancé finally gave up after everyone laughed. Sulkily refuses to speak the rest of the evening, and glowered at the overly long hug my aunt gave FB after. Apparently in the car after, my grandma kept going on about my fine young man, and my aunt also made note of my catch. Story 57. Years ago, I was hanging out with a female friend of mine in the town I was living in at the time. I was working on a photography project, and she was just keeping me company on the dock I had set up on. Some guy I'd never met before, but who was obviously a couple years younger than us, he was probably 15 or 16, walked up and started chatting. No problem here, I don't mind company, but he instantly starts talking about how big his dick was, and how annoying it was that all his female friends called him Mr. 10-inch. Then he got handsy, putting his arm around her shoulders and locking eyes with me like he was marking his territory. I let it go. He was a pathetic little dick smack, and she just liked the attention. Never saw him after that. Maybe he's moved out to Cali to be a model like his cousin. Direct quote, that. Story 58. I was driving back up to Boston from the South Shore on surface roads. An Asian import vehicle, heavily modified, mostly concerning the exhaust and clearly hand-brushed paint job, pulled up to a red light next to me. I looked over and looked back, just to see what the excess noise was. Apparently this was provocative, as the driver began to rev the engine a lot. It turned green and he blasted off. About 50 feet later, he passed the parked police cruiser on the access road behind the car dealership. I made it to the next light first, so I believe technically I won my first street race. Story 59. Riding a gondola up the mountain on my last ski trip while looking at a mountain map to plan our next runs. Dude across says, 12 years of school tells me you're a tourist if you're looking at a map. He was clearly talking about 12 years of college and postgrad. I honestly didn't even know a proper response. Maybe, if it took you 12 years of schooling to figure that out, you should ask for a refund. He went on to talk about how he and the rest of the ASA, American Society of Anesthesiologists, were renting out an entire convention center in town for some meeting. Big whoop. Story 60. I was cast in a play with a younger guy, not the problem dude, and we got along pretty well. During rehearsals, he hits his 21st birthday and invites me to his party. I show up and it's all dudes his age, and a few ladies. One guy in particular got way too drunk and started one-upping every guy there. At some point, he starts coming after me because I had a big beard, and was like, well, my chest is hairier, and took off his shirt, showing off his admittedly very hairy chest. My gay ass just sat there and enjoyed the show. Story 61. I was traveling for work once, and I went to a bar for a nightcap. There was an empty chair, and I asked the girl in the next chair if the seat was open. She said it was, and so I sat down. I order a drink, and I'm on the phone when this drunk dude comes up and starts yelling at me for cock blocking. The girl starts shouting at the guy to leave her alone. There's more yelling, and suddenly this guy says to the girl, "What, you think this guy's got a bigger dick than this?" Then he pulls his dick out. Bar staff gets involved and tells the guy to leave. He doesn't leave. Cops are called and he gets arrested. The bartender apologizes and says this isn't the first time this guy's gotten into arguments like this, but it's the first time he exposed himself in the bar. Guy had a big dick, but I don't know why he thought anyone would care. Story 62. Went to the Grizzlies Nuggets game at the Pepsi Center last December with a friend. I'm from near Memphis, so the Grizz are my team. My buddy and I got great seats in the club level. Awesome view, great service, generally a good experience. Until our seat neighbor showed up. This fella, wearing an Iverson Denver jersey, because of course he was, sat a seat away from us and was obnoxious all night. Fine, that's cool. You paid your ticket. You're there to have fun, but whenever I would cheer for the Grizzlies, I could feel this guy staring me down. The more support I showed my squad, the louder and more obnoxious this guy got, but he hit his highest point after halftime. When he and his lady friend returned to their seats, he chose to close the gap between us by sitting in the seat directly next to me. His companion pointed this out and he just said, "No, it's fine." He then spent the last half of the game directing his shouting pretty much directly at the side of my head, while spreading enough so our knees touched. Absolutely baffling time. Story 63. Me and two friends were at our local abusive waitress joint, and a guy came in wild-eyed and started yelling at the waitress about her being rude to his wife on the phone. After it appeared he wasn't going to let it go, I jumped in with a, "Hey buddy, we've been here for over an hour and the phone hasn't rang once. It's 2 a.m. Maybe your wife misdialed?" Apparently that translated to something really aggressive, because he suddenly tried to get in my face over it. He was starting to self-escalate, so I decided to give him a timeout. I pointed to my coffee cup and told him, "We were having a really nice time until you came in. How about you go wait outside, and when I'm done with my coffee, I'll be right there to beat your ass. Will that work for you? Coffee first, then I'll knock you out." The idiot thought that was a fine deal and walked out the door into temperatures in the teens, Fahrenheit. The waitress locked the door behind him. Waitress kept filling the coffee cup up. I could see the guy in the parking lot doing jumping jacks to keep warm. Eventually he came to the door and tried to get in, and that's when the cop showed up. He was so pissed off at getting played that he started yelling at the cops and pointing inside. wound up grabbing one of the officers. Did not go as he planned after that, but at least he didn't get hypothermia. So this isn't related to the last story, but I just wanted to kind of add like an unofficial story 64 from my own personal experience of like dude bros and alpha males trying to, go over the top to assert dominance. So I work out a lot. I'm a pretty big dude, about 6'3", 215. And I find myself sometimes receiving unsolicited advice from guys that clearly have no idea what they're doing. So I may be doing like a specific exercise, or maybe I'm doing something that necessitates me lifting a lot of weight, and a guy will just come up to me and say, hey, like, your form's wrong, or, you do that, you're going to hurt your shoulder. I could do that if I wanted, but I just don't want to get hurt. And it only happens when either they have a girl with them or I'm working out with a girl. Like, it's never just like a mano-a-mano, under the breath, casual conversation. It always comes across as very condescending and patronizing. And again, always within earshot of at least one woman. So I'm never disrespectful. I let them say their piece and make them feel strong and important. And then I let them know that I've been personal training people for over 20 years, and I literally have a PhD in physical therapy. So yes, I know exactly what I'm doing, but carry on.